Hello and good morning. Had to clear my desktop up. I left a few programs running in the back. So we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for coming. I know things are busy and getting much busier. We are experiencing a lot of requests for information and products, so things are getting much busier. And, thank you guys for coming and spending a little while with me. Today we're going to talk a little bit about system design, some of the tools on our website to help that, and some pointers and some information with you guys. So let's just get this show on the road. So we're going to go over a little bit of information about our Blackjack servers. Okay, so what each one is, a little bit of information on it, a little bit about camera choice and placement, our online calculator, a little bit about NVR setup and bandwidth. That'll actually go along line more with the using the online calculator, and then talk about a little bit about accessories and apps and things like that. So by all means, let's just get started. So the first thing is Digital Watchdog. We manufacture and ship out of our California office our Digital Watchdog NVRs. Okay, we do have them stocked also in our Florida office, but a lot of the assembly and a lot of the real work is done in our California Cerritos office. And we have a wide variety of products at all different price points. Okay, so you can go and look at these in different ways. We look at it by price, but the capabilities of each system are actually the same because the Spectrum software is the same. So we have our X rack. We're going to talk about E rack, all this other stuff, but we also have network attached storage to pair up to the different products. If your customer has a bunch of old computers lying around, we even have our Digital Watchdog client PCs, which are designed to run the Spectrum client at its highest possible performance on multiple monitors. Okay, so if your customer wants to sort of set up a mini video wall or advanced workstation, we can help supply a tweaked workstation that is designed to run Spectrum at its highest levels. And we also have our C2P server product, which is our product to integrate video analytics, POS, and other devices directly into Spectrum. Okay, so we aren't going to talk much about that today. We're going to have another webinar on that, and also we have had a couple of previous webinars on some of these things. I'll mention them as we go along, but some of them are good viewing, and you can pause them, you can go backwards and stuff like that. And this one, we will be recording today, and at the very end, we'll have a Q&A, but if you want to just pop questions in now to the question window as they happen, by all means, do it. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about is the Digital Watchdog X rack. So this is our, I don't want to say it's our highest end, but it's our highest performance Digital Watchdog server. Okay, it'll support up to 200 cameras, 30 frames a second. That's using the spec of 2.1 megapixel. I know that there's much higher camera resolutions out there, and that's what we have our online calculator for to help you figure it out. This one is got solid state drives, multiple drives, running Windows Server operating system. Okay, and they're actually mirrored. So if one SSD drive goes, the other one will take over for it. Okay, so you actually should have no OS downtime on that, or the least amount possible. All right, it is built-in dual 10 gigabit networking, because once you get over 100 or so cameras, you start getting into where you're well above a gigabit speed, and so you need higher than gigabit networking. The next level up is 10 gigabit networking, so you got to keep that in mind. We have storage options. We have NAS, rack mountable NAS, that actually support 10 gigabit for this product. So you can plug a NAS into it, and that is your actual storage. There's actually no storage on this guy, okay? It is a smaller rack, and you add the NAS as you need it, up to 560 terabytes of storage, and there's actually a way to push it above that, all right? These are build to order, generally 7 to 10 business days. We usually can get them out a lot faster. Comes with the mouse, and believe it or not, an important thing we found out, a lot of servers don't ship with these. We found out we're doing a renovation in Tampa. We ordered a server for some work there and didn't come with a rail kit. So this thing actually comes with a rail kit and stuff like that. And of course, it has digital Watchdog's 5-year warranty. Then we have our E-Rack. Now I know some of you guys have used these before. This was our big workhorse machine. Supports up to 128 cameras per server. Again, solid state drives with Windows or Linux operating systems. So you come across that customer says, I don't want Windows for reason X. I need this, I need that. You can go and order it with a Windows operating system in it. We actually have separate part numbers to make the ordering easy. Dual gigabit, so you can have, of course, your camera network on one side and your corporate network, your internet on the other side. Has mini HD outputs to view the Spectrum client, and we can go up to 320 terabytes of storage. The most E-Racks ship with RAID 5 activated on it. There's a hot spare option you can get, so there actually can be extra drives in there. So should a drive fail, the hot spare takes over. This is another 7 to 10 business days lead time. So, you know, I think we get these out a lot quicker than 7 to 10 days. Unless there's we're just getting a lot of orders in. I think we get them out much quicker than that. And again, keyboard, mouse, and rail kit included. Then we go to the P-Rack. So the P-Rack has close to the same performance, 128 cameras per server, solid state drive, Windows 10 or Linux operating system, dual gigabit. These you can do RAID 5 as an option. So these things will be a little lower in price in the 1U and 2U size. Max storage is up to about 70 terabytes, but you do get the higher performance, you get the rack mount. And again, not a big deal, but we noticed that, people order stuff and they don't ship it with rail kits. They need the rail kits, so we ship them with the rail kits, even though a lot of times they don't get used or they're used to put it on a shelf. We ship them with it anyway. And again, our 5-year warranty. Then we go to our product we call the Cube. Hot selling. We built the Cube DL in response to the fact that people wanted to use our high megapixel, 48 megapixel cameras on a smaller physical size than a rack mount, along with a little less cost. And so this was our answer for the Cube DL. It'll support up to 3 of our 48 megapixel cameras, 96 2 megapixel cameras running 30 frames a second. And there's something I glossed over because some of them don't have it on it. The X-Rack and E-Rack ship with 8 licenses pre-installed, so they'll automatically start recording 8 cameras. Our other products come with 4, okay? And so just keep that in mind when you're calculating licenses and whether you're using digital Watchdog cameras. You actually get a discount on licensing using digital Watchdog cameras, so your licensing cost can be 0 or very minimal, okay, based on what you're doing. If you're using third-party cameras, of course, you got to purchase some licenses. So these are max up to 20 terabytes of storage, although just because of the way hard drives are changing, a lot of these hard drive sizes may change. And again, it's our small form factor. And then we've got our DW Cube, which supports up to 64 cameras, 30 frames a second recording. Windows 10 or Linux again, dual gigabit network interface cards, 18 terabytes of storage. And again, these things don't have a lead time. We usually have these in stock and ready to ship either out of Tampa or out of our Cerritos branch. Then we have our Bolt. Our Bolt is our smaller size system. This one is built-in Linux operating system. And again, there was requests to try to keep costs down on certain things. You can still use the monitor on it. It actually has the HDMI output on it to support monitors. Dual gig on it, up to 16 terabytes of storage and up to 16 2 megapixel cameras at 30 frames a second. So maybe only 12 4 megapixel cameras if you're running 30 frames a second. Okay. And again, Linux operating system makes it very stable. A lot of times, again, people object now to putting another Windows box on their network, especially in the schools where they're using all Mac stuff. And then we have the Mini. The Mini is our fanless, preloaded with Spectrum, supports up to 12 cameras. It is actually designed to run headless. You log in with the web browser, okay, or the Spectrum client to do all the setup. You can't plug a monitor into it. There's no spot for a monitor. Great for residential and small business. They just want to put it on a shelf, and they still get every feature of spectrum that you'd get in an X-Rack. Okay, so the feature set is the same. It's just the size, form factor, and cost. All right, which is the great thing about Spectrum. I did add a spec sheet to this, you know, to give you an idea. Tiny desktop, you know, doesn't need a lot of power because it's only, you know, doing up to 12 cameras. You know, 34 watts draw. You know, so again, designed a 5-year warranty. We're going to talk more about this. All of our products, you know, we tell you, you got to put a UPS on these things. It's not just us. You're protecting the switch and you're protecting the cameras. We're going to talk a little more about it later when we talk about the systems. So another product I wanted to talk about, because we're talking about putting together a system, is CAS. And CAS is different from those other boxes because CAS has the storage and the Spectrum server built in to each one. Okay, so you can do up to 256 gigs of storage. So if you have 10 of these cameras, you got 2.5 terabytes of storage in your system. Okay, and you can combine these systems in what we call a merge that puts them all together so you can see them all in the Spectrum client. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But you have up to 30 cameras in a system you can run without a server. No box there. All the models are UL listed. Okay, so if you're putting them somewhere where that's a requirement, and I know a lot of cities has that as a requirement. Matter of fact, a large number of our cameras now are UL listed. We have models that are LPR, fisheye. We have 6 to 50 bullets now, and most of them are IP68 or IP67 rated. So we got to keep these in mind because CAS is different. CAS, you can sit there and, you know, have a camera at a site that needs solar power. You don't want to put a, you know, computer out there, which is going to draw more heat and more power. These things are great for that. Just going through some of the new models, we have LPR, 6 to 50 camera, you know, give you an idea. Couple different bullets, long range bullets. Again, you know, fisheye. We have a lot of companies, those retail kiosks. You can just put the camera in the kiosk powered up and it's recording. If you hook it up to the network and you use our DW Cloud, you can link them together and then log into it just like you would a server. There's no difference, okay? DW Cloud, as it says, no complex network configuration. We're doing it for you. We're not asking you to do any port forwarding and no limit. And I got one question, Luis, I'll answer it at the end for you there. Okay, but I just wanted to give you guys things that we have Spectrum systems that are 1 camera or a server and 1 camera or a mini and 4 cameras or a Bolt and 10 cameras or a Cube DL and 96 cameras, you know, and then so on up to the X-Rack. And then of course you can combine them together. So you could have 96 cameras and 2 cubes, okay? Because you're going to get some benefits out of Spectrum for having multiple servers on site. So let's talk a little bit about system design. And, you know, first off is camera placement, okay? Placement of cameras is, you know, I think probably one of the most important things on there. So, you know, what's your surveillance goal? Do you want wide area? Get a camera that covers a lot of stuff. Overt or covert, is camera going to be hidden? Do you have proper light sensitivity and lighting requirements and image quality and resolution? So these all place an image to you're choosing your camera and camera placements. And I think some of you guys that have been on webinars before have seen my view of our digital watchdog office in Tampa, sort of a view, and we're putting more cameras around this one. We're doing renovations inside. And, you know, we're going to choose some that give us good coverage, but really not a lot of cameras around here because we have our cameras that are multi-imager. It'll give us a 180-degree view and things like that. But when you guys are looking at cameras, you may want something that's giving you a sort of a normal view, a human eye view, super wide view, you know, 2.8 millimeter, maybe a telephoto view. You're focusing in on a door or whatever. And so those are the spots where you go and say, okay, maybe at this site, because the customer's kind of not telling me what they want, I'm going to use more varifocals. I prefer varifocals, but you know, you may know or be 99% sure what the customer wants. So you can go in and put in some fixed focus lenses, lowers the cost a little bit, and you can go in and see say, okay, this one's going to be 6 millimeters, it's going to be 4, or you're going to do all wide view and you're going to use 2.8s and panoramic cameras and stuff like that. But camera choice and camera positioning is obviously very important. If you notice, I like cameras with the least amount of sky in them because so you have the cameras pointing at the horizon or near the horizon where there's a lot of sky in them. You get a lot of false motion, you get a lot of things flying by, and there's no reason to record the sky. So one of the ways to keep false motion, so it's not recording, too much for needlessly, point the camera down to the area you want and get it out of the horizon, just to, think. Next, of course, is frame rate, okay? So frame rate, industry guidelines, Nevada Gaming Commission and some stuff is 30 frames a second. A lot of retail wants 12 to 20 frames a second. Schools maybe only 5 to 15 frames a second. A lot of times parking lots, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 frames a second, maybe up to 15 frames a second. And we do have a continuous plus motion option. So the system will record continuously at a very low frame rate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames a second, and then it'll pop up to 30 frames a second. So just give you an idea what the different frame rates look like. Like the difference between 30 and 15 is very minimal. We can see the guy's got a red jacket. He's walking across the parking lot. And even down to 10, we know what this guy's doing. He's just walking across the parking lot, kind of a wide view. He's walking across probably about 30 yards or so. 7.5, this may be good enough, for what you want to do, especially if someone's approaching a doorway. You just want to see what they look like. You want to be able to identify them. And especially now, a lot more people are wearing masks, more for identification. 1 frame a second may be too slow, but we know this guy did the parking lot, but maybe if he picked something up and threw it or whatever, we couldn't quite tell what he was doing. So, again, choosing your frames a second is important. I would tell you that when I do my live trainings, that when I polled the class on, hey, what's your average frame per second? Most told me between 10 and 15. There's, every 3 or 4 classes, always one guy sets everything for 30 frames a second, continuous record, highest resolution. And by the way, that's fine with our smart search. That's good. You just have to, convince the customer to pay for that storage. And then if someone comes in and bids you and they're bidding on motion and they're quoting a quarter of the storage, you got to look out for that. But sometimes you'll get an RFP, that has specific information on it and what they're going to do. And so you're going to want to, of course, follow what's on the RFP. So let's talk a little bit about our online calculator. I know at least some of you guys have used this before. And so our online calculator, DW Storage, looks like this. You can click Add New and start adding stuff. We do have information about XRAC and the NASs, BJ Mini, and then H.265 option is enabled for the cameras that have H.265, okay? And so we go over here, of course, we can choose platform. It'll say DW Spectrum or IP+. You choose DW Spectrum. Again, if you're using DW cameras, the benefits of using DW cameras is if there is something going on, we're not asking you to call brand X because maybe they'd have a firmware update or something's going on. We can answer the question because you're using the DW cameras much easier. Also, we have a thing called our double down, which allows you to get either low cost or no cost licensing for the cameras. So just keep that in mind as using the digital Watchdog cameras have 2 benefits, okay? So choose your cameras, choose your quality. So quality, some people like to have best. So that's the amount of compression. So low actually means the highest possible compression, which may compromise video quality, but it depends on how far the subject is away, because if you have a lower bit rate, you have lower pixels per inch, or how far something is, so setting it for best. But again, your hard drive storage goes way up. I would tell you the difference between medium and high. I have a hard time telling the difference, and actually on a 4 megapixel camera, on most people's monitors, you're still running 1080p monitors. You can't see a difference. So I would tell you to run it, spec it on high, but then put it on medium, because you're not going to be able to see a difference unless stuff is far away. If you're trying to look at stuff that's far away you want to get a little more detailed and set it on high. Each of these almost doubles the bit rate. So if this is going to use up 2 terabytes, you go to high, it's going to be like 3.6 terabytes, and best is going to be somewhere around 6 or 7 terabytes because your data rate's going to go way up. So just keep that in mind on your data rate. And you guys, of course, can go out and play with this thing and look at it and see how it works. I like the workflow on this thing. Allow me to pretty fast go through it. So again, we're choosing some cameras. I think I've got a video that's going to play here. So I'm going through, we're going to just increase the number of cameras. 24 cameras there. Motion, so again, choosing motion, you know, most places are not even 40% motion. A lot of offices, stuff like that, at 20% motion. I mean, people sitting in their offices and they're coming out for lunch, leaving for work, whatever. So, you know, don't set the motion too high. 50%, many places may be too high. And of course, you might be using a generic camera or a digital Watchdog camera. Generic's just another manufacturer, and they've got 4, 5, 6, 7 megapixel camera. You can choose the codec, if you know what codec they're using. If not, leave it on H.264. And again, choose your quality. Choose your number of cameras. We have 18 of these generic cameras, and we're looking at 49 terabytes right now of storage. All right, but in the end, so as you saw, we have like a wide variety of systems. So for you, knowing all this information, you can put it into Spectrum and then size it out properly. And so this thing sized out, we've got a total 200 of these 4 megapixel cameras, 24 of these turret cameras, 18 generic cameras, 700 megabits, 40% motion. These were outside, so these are 50% motion cameras. We've got 100 terabytes, and we've got 95 servers that are compatible with them. And then we can go in here and look at our different choices here. We'll just let this play here. And we can choose the servers we want to try, or we can say, you know, the customer says we need or I'm sure they need redundant power supplies, dual NIC, and we can just look down the list here and decide, oh, I need 2 P racks, 2 E racks, 2 X racks because of the storage. And then it gets down to 3 because they have less storage in them, but you may want to account for failover. So you may want a 3rd one because the customer wants recording redundancy as well as data redundancy. All right, and then of course you're getting ridiculous here. We're saying like 58 1 terabyte machines. So we'll skip those. And then if we come here, you. There we go. So again, we've got our filters, so we can decide customer didn't want Linux, they want RAID 5, dual NIC, redundant power supply. I want to make sure rack mount. I know I have Panzillas on it, so I want to be able to support Panzillas. Or I know I'm going to be using NAS with it, so I want to make sure it supports the NASs. Or you can go specifically going like, I only want to see PREX, or I only want to see, you know, cubes. And then it'll show you the cubes and the number you need to get it done. And, you know, or maybe I only want Windows, don't want Linux, or I want, you know, ones that support RAID 6 or RAID 5. Okay. Now, some of these options, like the RAID 6, you need to request at the purchase. So just keep that in mind. So we've got our system, okay? We're over here. I've chosen 2 BJRE2 80 terabyte machines, and I'm gonna split the cameras up pretty evenly because I don't have any unusual cameras like a, you know, 48 megapixel Panzillas or stuff like that. And I've got available storage, 36 terabytes, acquired storage 100, so that means how much headroom I have on this one, 100 terabytes, and I'm going to do 498 megabits of throughput if all the cameras are recording at the frame rate that was requested. Okay, so now you got to look at when people log in remotely. Jay, I'll answer your question at the end of it, but yes. So when you go in and and do this, you now know your true throughput. Now, I don't think anyone's going to try to pull up all 242 cameras, but you can get an idea of, let's say, a group of these cameras, of someone logging in and doing 16 or 24, whatever, and this thing will actually help you calculate the bit rate they could possibly use remotely. Now, our client is different because our client, let's see, just see if I can get it here. Our client will try to use when you have multiple cameras on the screen and not enough bandwidth. I hope you guys are seeing this. You guys are seeing this? Yes, there we go. Sorry, I just want to be sure. It'll actually try not to use as much bandwidth. So this one is actually still, I've got good bandwidth here today. So these are actually still showing at 4 megapixel and 5 megapixel on this one, H.265. So good bandwidth usage on these. And then as I bring more up though, we'll bring one up on here. We'll put a 4K camera on. And then probably they'll, yeah, we're doing good today. What'll happen is they'll actually remotely say, you don't have enough bandwidth or your system doesn't have enough computing power. It'll actually lower and show you the second stream. So I'll have to manually do it. So you go to resolution, you go to low, and it'll force these cameras to show their second stream. So now this one's 640 by 360, 640 by 360, 640 by 480, 640 by 240. Or in the case of that, maybe you don't have enough bandwidth, but you do want to see the high resolution screen and sacrifice frame rate. We can force it up to the higher resolution. So we'll go back a little more into the client a little later. I just kind of wanted to show you that. So we've got our system. Okay. Again, we got the description. We know the number of cameras. We know it's a couple of servers. All right. We can then go in and create I just made up a name, Southern Cross Hospital. I put my information in here. You can put more recipients, so you can send them the email. You can put a description in here. And this allows you then to, when you forward this off, it will create a project registration. You can then send it to your salesperson or to our inside sales, and we can help you register this project and fill it out if you need more brackets and stuff like that, and get you the best possible discount in order to help you close the project. So just keep that in mind. You can use this to start out your project registration. It will send you a PDF that you can take the data off from. And if you need to go in and edit it, you got this code, and you can just go back onto the calculator, punch that code into where it says open project. Up here, it might be a little tough for you to see. Punch that code and allow you to edit the project. So when we talk about Spectrum, okay, a Spectrum is a Spectrum system is either one server, or in the case of CAS, one camera, or a group of Blackjack servers or CAS cameras tied together by TCP/IP. Okay, and so what that means for you is when you're using your system, you can search through all the resources on here. So if I want to go look for cameras and devices, and I've got want to just look up parking or parking lot, I go, here's all my parking lot cameras. So it allows you to manage your cameras if you've named them properly. Okay, I actually think we got a couple of the Panzillas that are also covering the parking lot. Got this one here, and that one there. I don't think this one's covering that one there. Probably got to put parking lot on those, but now I got all the parking lot cameras in view on here, and you can see now I'm starting to struggle a little bit with bandwidth. I don't want to mess up my GoToMeeting connection. So that's the benefit. It's one of the benefits of merging them together, is that all the resources of the system are available to them. And if you look at the search, I can search for web pages, I can search for layouts, I can search for users. So I've got a problematic user. Let's go look for Paul here. He's always a problem. I've got a couple Pauls in here. I can just go and go to user settings, and if I want to, I can disable him. Okay, or Paul 2 here. I think that's me. Disable. Okay, or give me more rights. All right. All from here. So there's a lot you can do with the search system, and having the system merged together is a huge benefit. We'll just close that and we'll go back out over here. Here we go. So when you merge the systems, you also get camera failover. Okay, so if you need to, you can have storage on one, okay, cameras on one, fail over to another server and start recording. Or if this unit is seemingly working okay, the OS is working okay, whatever, but the storage isn't working right, those cameras will still fail over to another device. I think I got a question here about CAS when merging. Do they use the storage of the other system for video backup? From Luis. And the answer is no. Okay, on the CAS systems, the storage in the camera is that you can though plug a small NAS into the switch that the cameras are plugged into, and that can be used for backup storage, failover storage, whatever you want to call it. But what you're doing is you're combining the computer power of all the systems when you do a merge, which is just telling them, hey, these are part of a system. They share all the licenses. They're sharing a common administrator, usernames and password, and a common, cloud user administrator. So there's two types of administrators: a baked-in admin, and then there's whoever the first person that connects that system to the cloud. But you're sharing it and you're combining the computer power so you can go to large camera counts. Okay, and what I mean by large is we have installations out there, some of them in cannabis, some of them in other stuff, military installations, that are 4,000 and 5,000 cameras using this. So they got to search and they got to name the cameras right, and do searching for video or whatever. Very important. So I got another question, Tony. I'll answer that near the end. There we go. So a full system is not just Spectrum servers and boxes. It is power, okay, and as you're switching. So I would tell you that go out and pick one brand of a switch, familiarize yourself with it, and that's the one you use on every site, and make sure you're putting it even on a smaller site, a managed switch, because if there's something going on there, you can go look at the logs of that managed switch and really see packet errors because of camera X or wiring. Some of these switches will tell you that you have a bad cable and where it's bad at it. So good idea to do this. That'll support the power you need. If it won't support the power you need, like we have some unusual cameras, we ship our cameras that need more power with a PoE injector. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then, of course, UPS. Now, I put this here because this time of year in the Southeast, we get a lot of lightning storms and a lot of calls in to tech support because things are going on. And I want to talk about this because the UPS is as important as any other component. It will power the system and make sure it's recording, but it'll also protect it electrically. So a good quality UPS is something that's line interactive and what's called true sine wave. So it's a nice smooth, I'm running my hand up and down like an ocean wave, but it's a nice smooth power going to all the components, whether they're CAS cameras, whether they're regular cameras, whether it's the server, whether it's the switches or whatever. And I know you guys know this, but we have had calls from folks and they have plugged in at certain buildings and stuff like that, the stuff directly into the red connector, which is, of course, 99.9% of the time a backup generator. Backup generator is dirty power. And so you definitely need some kind of power conditioning on here, whether you're using the UPS or whatever for that. Orange is usually an isolated ground for sensitive electronic equipment. You can use that, but mostly you find those in the different, rooms that people are in. And then the blue outlets are self-grounded outlets with alarms. So you try to plug something into it, doesn't have proper grounding, it'll actually beep at you. And I have Serge coming in saying Minutemen does make excellent UPSs, and they actually have an excellent piece of software, which was my final thing to talk about, is you're learning the menus of your switch, okay? You learn the software that comes with these, so this way the software's in there. If the power goes out and after either the UPS gets down to 20% power or after a certain period of time, there's a couple ways you can do it. The system will then allow, the UPS will force the server to shut down. So this way you don't have a hard shutdown and the hard drives are getting whacked against it, or especially if power is going up and down and it's that kind of problematic thing, okay? Got to make sure you install that software so it'll do a smooth shutdown of your Spectrum server or servers. Okay, very important. By the way, it's not just our stuff, anybody's stuff. Do these practices. Find out. Hey, if power goes out, what do you want to do? If you just need a UPS for power conditioning, you don't have to go crazy. You just got to make sure it can support it. And then when the thing hits 10% power, so it might give them 5 minutes of backup power, 10 minutes of backup power, it'll then shut it down. Or customer says, hey, I want this thing recording for at least 12 hours. Then you got to get them enough power to power the switch, power the server. You don't need to have a UPS on the monitor, stuff like that. So anyway, I just want to talk about it because this time of year we get a lot of calls in. I want to make sure you guys are using a good UPS you're happy with and a good switch. And I would only go one switch. Just don't buy what's on sale, because sometimes what's on sale you're not going to be familiar with. It's a little bit quirky. They're not set up for our business. So you got to know what you're installing with those too. So a couple other things I want to talk about. We have an Apple TV app for our Spectrum, our A1 Plus and our IP Plus. You've got to install it from the Apple App Store, but we get a lot of questions for how can I view this on my TV? Hopefully we'll have a Roku version and something like that in the future, but very important you keep that in mind. Customers may be requesting how I do it. We have an Apple TV app. They can go in and, view live, view what's going on. And what's neat is you grab the remote here, you press the center pad and you go, hey, Siri, open Site Viewer, which is the name of our software, and it'll open it up open up the thing and you just choose your site and you go in and, view your cameras on there. So again, pretty cool product. Other thing is our HD Spot, which gives you spot monitor out to modern monitors, much like you had in your old analog systems. You had looping outputs. So you take a camera and, 3 or 4, depending on the manufacturer of the monitor. It might take 4 inputs on it. Might be a quad, and use that for your monitoring thing. Ours will do. We have a 4-channel unit and a 16-channel unit, and it will redisplay those cameras. It works with Spectrum, works with our A1 Plus, IP Plus, and you don't have to have a computer. Don't have everything. Just an HDMI cable, a monitor, and a network cable going back to where your cameras are installed. So it's really just a neat product. I do want to talk about our website. Okay, so DW website. Again, I would say to you guys, go in and check out our support page. When you're on the main site, you double click on support. You'll jump to here and you can just type in one word. I was actually looking up for someone said, how do I merge something? And I just, it's hard to remember all the steps. There's actually not that many, but it's hard to remember them. I just typed in merge, said merge systems, and I was able to send them the document. Okay. Rather than, trying to explain to them over the phone, whatever, send the documents very easy, one page on how to merge systems. Manufacturing compliance. I think we do this at every webinar. We have a list online of all our products, it's almost all our things we sell. There's like 1 or 2 things not on here that are NDAA and TAA compliant, which means they're eligible for GSA contracts and government opportunities due to the ban of Huawei, Hikvision, and Dahua products and components. All right. All of our stuff is either manufactured in South Korea, Vietnam, or Taiwan. We've done a deep dive to make sure that there's no components on anything in these lists that may be questionable. So you can go in and take a look if you got a question on something. Certainly reply to it. I think you guys all got my email when you sent this out here. So this is an important thing. There is a lot of federal money floating around by the PPP program, then the stimulus money and loans and all this other stuff. There may be another round of it. And some of you guys may be getting federal money and using products that probably won't happen, but could come back and bite you because you used something that wasn't NDAA compliant. So keep that in mind. Going to talk a little bit about webinars. We have more webinars coming up. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Spectrum and encoder. So how to make the DW encoder work in Spectrum. We're going to talk a little bit about our new encoder that's coming out, which I'm not going to tell you anything now. And we have this whole slew, this whole history of all of our other works with, which are really fun. And we get the guys from these different companies to come on there and explain their product and how it works with Spectrum. And I think Thursday today, Thursday, yeah, is Centurion Solutions at around at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, we have the other one tomorrow and Friday. And then Blackjack set up next Thursday, Linux OS, and we have a bunch more scheduled for July that will be product focused. So, which means it'll be like one product or one group of products